I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to catch his wife cheating, but here I am, staring at my phone in disbelief. Lisa and I had been together for about 5 years, married for 3. She always had this attitude like she was too good for most things, and honestly I kind of liked that about her at first. She's fiery, bitchy at times, but sharp and quick-witted, until I started noticing little things that didn't add up. It started with her being more secretive. She'd suddenly take her phone into the bathroom or lock her laptop when I was around. I'd catch her lying about where she was going or why she was late. She'd snap at me if I asked questions, call me paranoid, tell me I was reading into things. But I knew her too well. I could tell she was hiding something. 2 weeks ago, I was working late at the office, just a couple of extra hours or so I told myself. When I got home, I noticed her phone was plugged in, but her messages were open. Her screen had a message from some guy named Jake. Can't wait to see you tonight. With a wink emoji, I froze, my stomach clenched like I'd been sucker punched. I didn't know who Jake was, but I knew that voice. It was her programmer, her disaster response guy. She'd been acting weird around him lately, more than usual, texting late at night, giggling in ways she never did before. At first I told myself it was nothing. Maybe just a friend, a colleague, but deep down I knew it was more. She'd been acting way too defensive when I brought it up, denying everything with her usual bitchy smirk. Oh please Dave, you're just paranoid, I'm not cheating on you. Jake's just a guy I work with, nothing more. But her tone was dismissive, like she hated that I even dared question her. I saw her eyes flicker, guilty, maybe even afraid, before she snapped at me, saying I was crazy, that I was imagining things. I started digging into her phone more. I found messages from Jake about some special tests, but they sounded more like coded talk for something else. I also noticed her laptop had a folder labeled Disaster, but inside was a bunch of files like Test Run, Remote Access, and Deployment Protocols. I looked closer and it hit me. Her disaster response algorithms weren't just for emergencies, they were cover stories for her secret meetings. She was testing some kind of remote facility, and from what I could tell, Jake was involved in that. I knew she was hiding something huge. The most fucked up part, Lisa kept lying, denying everything, calling me suspicious for even suspecting her. She spun this story about how she was just working late on some project, how Jake was just a friend, that I was overreacting. But I caught her in so many lies, I started to think she was just manipulating me. Every time I pressed her, she'd get bitchy, call me insecure, accuse me of not trusting her, as if she was the victim. I felt this intense mixture of anger, betrayal, and confusion. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? And what was she hiding behind all those lies? That's when I decided I had to find out the truth once and for all, no matter what the cost. The more I looked into it, the more I realized I was sitting on a mountain of betrayal. I spent nights staring at her phone, her emails, her laptop, trying to piece together what the hell was really going on. Every new message, every hidden folder, every secret code just confirmed it. Lisa wasn't just cheating. She was involved in something way bigger than a simple affair. That's when I found out about her test runs and disaster response algorithms. She'd been secretly deploying this remote testing facility, using her programmer, Jake, as her cover story. It was like some secret operation she kept hidden from everyone, including me. I know it sounds crazy, but I started to piece together the timeline. She'd been going out late at night, saying she was working late, but I'd find her messages with Jake about setting up the new parameters and testing the remote system. There were photos, too, screenshots of some high-tech equipment, maps of testing zones, encrypted files. I couldn't ignore it anymore. She was sneaking out, meeting him in some hidden location, and pretending everything was normal at home. One night, I decided I'd had enough. I waited until she left for what she claimed was a meeting, but I knew better. I followed her. Just a quick shadow effort, nothing crazy. I parked around the corner and saw her pull into some industrial area. My heart was pounding like I was about to walk into a war zone. I parked behind some dumpsters and watched her get out of her car. She went into this nondescript building. No sign on the door, nothing. Just an abandoned-looking warehouse. I snuck closer, trying to listen. I overheard voices, Jake's unmistakable voice talking about the final test, and Lisa's sharp replies. They were discussing some kind of remote operation that could interfere with emergency services or even run clandestine tests on disaster scenarios they weren't supposed to be involved in. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was no ordinary affair. She was part of something dangerous. I snapped some photos on my phone, my hands trembling. When I finally got back home, I sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through everything I'd gathered. I felt sick, betrayed, angry, and totally blindsided. My wife, the woman I trusted, was secretly involved in covert testing that could have serious consequences. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I had to be careful. She was manipulative and bitchy, and I could see her twisting everything to her advantage if I wasn't cautious. I wasn't sure what I was more afraid of, losing her entirely or what she was capable of if I pushed her too hard. But one thing was clear: I couldn't just ignore it anymore. I had to face her and find out exactly how deep her lies went. The confrontation was inevitable. I waited for the right moment, that fragile window where she was home alone and not acting like she had 1,000 secrets. I sat her down in the living room, trying to keep my voice steady but feeling like I was about to explode. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, the one that always made my skin crawl a little more. She knew I was onto her and she didn't care. "You've been lying to me, Lisa," I started, my voice tense. "All these late nights, the secret texts, the weird files on your laptop. What the hell is going on?" I knew I sounded angry, but honestly I was just hurt. How could she betray me like this? Not just in some stupid affair, but in something so dangerous and secretive. I showed her the photos I'd taken, the messages I'd found. Her face flickered with a mixture of annoyance and defiance, like she hated being caught but didn't see the point in explaining herself. She rolled her eyes and scoffed. "God, Dave, you're so paranoid. You think I'm cheating, but I'm just working late, okay? Jake, just a colleague, and he's helping me with some new algorithms I've been trying to develop. You don't understand the tech stuff. You're just insecure." Her voice was biting, full of that snappy tone she always used when she was lying through her teeth. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen enough. I pressed her further, asking about the tests I overheard about the secret facility. And her reaction, she got even more bitchy, her voice sharp like a blade. "Look, I don't have to explain myself to you. I'm doing important work and you're just jealous because you're not involved. Jake's just a friend and I haven't done anything wrong. You're making a mountain out of a molehill like always." But her words sounded hollow, like she'd rehearsed them to dismiss what I knew was real. That's when I saw her eyes flicker again. Something wasn't adding up. She was lying, trying to spin me a story, but I could see the guilt behind her smirk. I felt my stomach twist again, realizing this was more than just some affair. She was part of a covert operation, something that could have serious consequences if it ever got out. I was angry, yes, but mostly I felt betrayed, like she'd used me as a cover story for whatever she was really doing. I told her I knew about her involvement in the testing, about the secret files, about the meetings I'd followed her to. Her face clouded over, her tone turning even more defensive. "You don't know what you're talking about. I'm doing this for us, for our future. You're just too scared to understand. You're insecure, Dave, that's all." She kept calling me insecure, but I could see her trying to manipulate me, trying to turn my feelings into some kind of personal weakness. It was disgusting. I didn't know where to go from there. I felt this tumult of rage and sadness inside, like my entire world was collapsing. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, but I knew her better than she thought. She was a liar, a manipulator, and now I was starting to realize she might be more dangerous than I ever imagined. The betrayal cut deep. This wasn't just about her cheating, it was about her hiding something that could threaten everything I cared about. And honestly, I wasn't sure I could ever trust her again. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The betrayal hit me hard, but what haunted me more was the realization that she'd been lying to my face for months about her work, about Jake, about everything. She had managed to keep a secret so big, so deeply buried, I wondered if I even knew who she was anymore. Her bitchy attitude, her constant dismissals, they all made sense now. She'd been playing me, manipulating me, all while she was involved in something dangerous. I started digging even deeper. I hacked into her email, her cloud storage, every account I knew she used. I wanted to see if I was missing anything, if there was some bigger picture I hadn't yet glimpsed. What I found was worse than I imagined. She'd been communicating with people I didn't even know existed, call signs, encrypted messages, references to test sites in remote locations. It was clear she wasn't just working late. She was actively involved in some clandestine operation. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how far gone she was. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was espionage, sabotage, maybe even terrorism. I couldn't believe I'd been married to someone capable of this. I felt this cold dread settle in my chest. I had to decide what to do. Should I confront her again, call the authorities, break everything off? Every option seemed terrifying. One thing was certain: I couldn't stay silent. I gathered all my evidence, took screenshots, made notes. I knew her temper. If I just accused her outright, she'd deny everything, get even more bitchy, maybe destroy everything in her path. So I started planning how to handle this carefully. I couldn't trust her anymore, but I also couldn't just blow everything up without thinking it through. I remember sitting down that night, staring at the mountain of evidence I'd collected. I felt numb, like I'd been punched in the gut. I thought about the woman I married, the fiery, bitchy woman who used to make me laugh, who I thought loved me. That woman seemed like a stranger now. Instead, I was faced with this cold, calculating person involved in some secret world I'd never even suspected. It was a lot to take in. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all this? How did I not see the signs earlier? How do I even start to fix this mess? My mind kept circling back to one thing: my trust was shattered, completely. I had no idea what was real anymore. Was she ever really honest with me? Or was I just some pawn in her game? I felt this awful mix of anger, pure, hot rage, and sadness that refused to go away. I knew I wouldn't forget any of this soon. And honestly, I didn't know if I even wanted to stay married anymore. But I also knew I needed a plan, a way to confront her that wouldn't blow everything apart in flames. I just didn't know what that was yet. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a mind racing 1,000 miles an hour. I had to decide: confront her again, or just cut my losses and walk away. But I knew I couldn't just ignore what I'd found. This wasn't some petty affair or argument. This was something serious, something that could get out of control if I wasn't careful. I spent most of the day planning my move. I knew Lisa, her temper, her bitchy streak, how she liked to twist things around. If I went in guns blazing, she'd deny everything, call me paranoid again, and probably destroy whatever evidence I had left. Plus, she had that way of turning everything around to make herself the victim. No, I couldn't just accuse her without solid proof, and I had to be ready for her to spin some bullshit to save herself. Late that afternoon, I called her from a burner phone I'd bought just in case. I told her I needed to talk, that I'd uncovered some things and we needed to clear the air. Her tone was defensive right from the start: how I was overreacting, how I was just insecure, how she was trying to build a future here. I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling. I told her I knew she'd been lying, that I had proof of her involvement in some secret testing, that I knew about Jake, the files, the meetings. That silence on the other end, priceless. She started to deny everything at first, claiming I was delusional. Then she got angry, her voice rising like she was ready to explode. "You're crazy, Dave. I've been working my ass off trying to make something of my career, and you're over here accusing me of being some kind of spy. You're just a jealous little shit who can't handle the fact that I'm doing something important. Stop trying to ruin everything. Just leave me alone before you make things worse." Her words cut deep. She was furious, defensive, but underneath it all, I could hear the fear of losing control, of losing her cover story. I told her I wasn't backing down, that I was going to get to the bottom of this, no matter what. I told her I loved her, but I wouldn't stand for lies and secrets anymore. That if she didn't come clean, if she didn't tell me everything, I'd be forced to do something drastic. She hung up on me then, screaming, raving about how I was crazy and how I was trying to control her. That was the moment I knew I had to go all in. I had to figure out her next move and decide what I was willing to risk for the truth. That night, I felt exhausted but more determined than ever. I knew this was going to get worse before it got better. I kept replaying her words, her anger, her lies, her bitchy attitude. I'd been played for a fool, but I was done being naive. She wasn't just cheating. She was involved in something dangerous, something that could ruin lives. And I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I was going to expose her, or at least find a way to get out while I still could. Either way, my mind was made up. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. The days that followed were like living in a storm I couldn't escape. I gathered every piece of evidence I could find, screenshots, encrypted emails, her secret files, and created a plan. I knew she'd try to cover her tracks if she sensed I was onto her, so I had to be careful. I contacted a friend who was a lawyer, just to get some advice on what legal steps I could take if I needed to do more than just leave. Nothing was straightforward, especially given what I suspected about her involvement in dangerous activities, but I was prepared to do whatever it took. She sensed I was closing in. Her attitude turned even more bitchy, her little jabs sharper than ever. She lashed out at me, calling me insecure, accusing me of betrayal, trying to make me doubt myself. But I saw through it now. Her lies were thin, her anger masking her guilt. I confronted her one last time, face to face, in the living room where everything had fallen apart. I told her I knew about her secret meetings, the testing facility, Jake's involvement. I told her I wasn't going to let her ruin everything. Our life, our future, whatever was left of it. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She screamed, called me controlling, said I was just trying to ruin her because I couldn't handle her success. She said she was doing this all for us, that she was building something important that I was just too stupid to understand. But I didn't buy it anymore. I told her. She was a liar, that her disaster response algorithms and secret tests were dangerous, and I was going to report everything if she didn't come clean. And then she snapped. Her bitchy smirk faded into something colder, more calculating. She threatened me, said if I went to the authorities, she'd destroy me, ruin what little life I had left. That's when I realized I was dealing with someone who could do real damage if she wanted to. I knew I had to get out fast. I packed a bag, took all my evidence, and left while she was out, just before she could escalate her bullshit. The aftermath was brutal. I filed for divorce, got a restraining order, and handed over everything I'd collected to the authorities. The police made it clear she was involved in some covert project, testing systems that could interfere with emergency services, possibly even more. I never heard from her after that. I don't think she even tried to contact me. I've moved on, but the scars remain. The trust I once had is gone, replaced by a lingering sense of betrayal. Looking back, I realize I was blind for a long time. I trusted her, believed her lies even when the signs were right in front of me. But I learned something important, that sometimes the people closest to you can hide the biggest secrets, and that betrayal cuts deeper than most people realize. If I could give anyone advice, it's this. Don't ignore the red flags no matter how much you love someone, and always protect yourself first, because once the truth comes out, there's no going back. I still wonder what might have happened if I hadn't found out. But I also know I'm better off without her, and I'm finally ready to rebuild my life from the wreckage she left behind.